The Killing from 1956 was a fascinating crime thriller directed by Stanley Kubrick, starring Sterling Hayden and a number of big-name actors. It's a beautifully made heist film with all of those crime noir elements I love so much. I really enjoyed this film, and let's take a closer look. So early in the film, we're introduced to the character Johnny Clay. He's played here by Sterling Hayden, one of my favorite actors from these old crime movies. Now, he's a cool criminal just out of prison, and he's here with his girl Faye, who's played by the gorgeous actress Colleen Gray, who, right off the bat, we can see she's head over heels for Johnny and has missed him terribly while he was in lockup. Now, even though Johnny should be content to be free and back with this gorgeous woman, oh no, he's got a scheme for one more grand heist. Oh, come on, man. Things like this don't tend to go well in these type of movies. Don't you remember what happened in the asphalt jungle? Well, in any case, the film slowly introduces other characters that are going to be an important part of this heist. And there's also kind of helpful a voiceover narrative that tells us what's going on as well as we watch the film. We're introduced to the character Mike O'Reilly, who is this track bartender at a horse track. He's played here by actor Joe Sawyer. He's another one of those awesome actors I've seen in a bunch of crime films. And we see him, he comes home to his wife, who is not doing very well. It looks like she's very heavily medicated. I couldn't tell if she was a junkie or just someone with health issues, but in any case, they need help financially. So Mike wants in on this heist for his medical bills. Meanwhile, we have the character George Petty, played by actor Elisha Cook Jr., and he arrives home. He's this mousy guy that's in so many of these crime films. He's either a little patsy character or something like that. But still, to this day, I still remember him as the crime boss Ice Pick from the original Magnum PI. Well, anyhow, he's in on this heist as well because he's the track cashier at the horse track. So that's kind of how he's in on this robbery scheme. Well, he arrives home to his girl Sherry, who's played here by actress Marie Windsor. And oh my goodness, she is amazing in this film as this nasty, belittling woman who has poor George just wrapped around her finger, berating the poor guy the whole time. But watch her transformation as she seems to pep up when he shares details about this heist job and the potential for big money. And that's when she turns on the sugar and becomes more beguiling and manipulative to find out more. I love it. Well, sure enough, in the next scene, we see she's snuck off and she's met with her boyfriend on the side, this character Val, who's played by actor Vince Edwards. Again, another amazing actor I've seen in a bunch of these old films. And after some tastefully implied romancing with him, it's an old film, so, there's a kiss and then a fade to black. After that, she shares George's heist scheme with him. We see him scheming with her about how he could take it from him in a big double cross. Cut over to Johnny, and he is congregating with some of his other friends. They're at the smoky table, and it's a beautifully constructed scene. Most of this film is, but for me, this visually was kind of high point of the film with all the details, that beautiful smoky light, the food and the drinks on the table, the positioning of the actors, the performances, the camera framing. I learned how to appreciate stuff like this from watching another YouTube channel, Studio Binder, that this type of composition is known as the mise en scène. It's where the filmmaker puts all of these elements together to tell the story. And actually, that channel makes a lot of references to Stanley Kubrick, so I guess it's appropriate that this is a Kubrick film as well. But watch that scene. It's just so amazing. So anyhow, Johnny is detailing this scheme. The guys are listening in, figuring out what their roles will be. But soon they hear a noise. They go to find out what it is, and they find out that it's that character Sherry, who is snooping around. So the guys take George home, and Johnny starts questioning her, who he says is a nosy little tramp. And she tries and fails to turn on some sugar on Johnny. She's quite a character here. Now, a little later, George and Sherry, they're back home, and maybe realizing he's in over his head here. George wants out, but Sherry, the femme fatale that she is, and she's got this little guy wrapped around her finger, she has just got him convinced he's got to go through with this heist. And Amongst other things, this film is an amazing character study in just the moods and feelings and emotions of these characters. They're so rich. 3 days later, Johnny goes to meet with character Maurice, who is played by Kola Kwariani. Hope I said that right. He's this massive, big, bald-headed guy at the local chess club. He looks like a professional wrestler. And I love seeing the fact that he meets him at a chess club. From what I read behind the scene, I guess Kubrick actually would go to chess clubs back in the time and meet people. And I love seeing places like this. I mean, do they even have places anymore where you can go and pay 15 cents to play a game of chess? I don't know. And in any case, he's this big bruiser that Johnny knew from prison, and he convinces him to get involved because he's going to throw a fight to cause a distraction as part of this heist scheme at the racetrack. Now, next, Johnny meets with the character Nicky, who's played by the completely wacky Timothy Carey. Now, he's a gunman, and he's going to be pulling off this shot at the race. And again, Timothy Carey he's in a bunch of crime films I've seen. He is legitimately creepy, and he just gives you this uneasy vibe. Like, can you even trust this guy? Amazing character. I loved watching him in this film. So as we get up to the heist itself, now the narrative jumps around a lot, kind of jumps in time here and there. It can be a little bit complex. And I'm going to try and summarize it as best I can, but I'm going to cut off the summary. I'm not going to give the big grand spoiler because, wow, it's a humdinger of an ending. But what happens is Johnny settles into like a temporary little motel place to stay. He gets all situated, and soon he's off to the bus station where he drops off a package of flowers, this big rectangular box. Mike gets moving, says goodbye to his sick wife. He gets the locker key and goes to pick up the flowers and heads to the horse track. Now, we also have this crooked policeman character, Randy, who's played by actor Ted DeCourcia. Now, he gets into position because he's going to be there to pick up the money later. Earlier, we established that his character is in debt to the mob. He owes a lot of money, which is why he's in on this heist as well. So Maurice, the big bald-headed guy, he leaves a chess club, shows up at the track, goes to the bar, and starts this big old fist fight. And I thought it was a little funny, actually. I mean, in the course of the fight, his shirt gets ripped off. And almost instantly, it's like watching like a professional wrestler like George the Animal Steele, doing some pro wrestling because he's flinging guys over left and right. It's all great. They managed to subdue him and take him away, but he has done his part and caused the distraction. We cut over to Nicky the gunman. As he's left the farm, he gets to the track, and he parks near the racetrack. And he's got this crazy way of talking with his teeth. I mean, watch him say, "Red lightning in the 7th." I love it. The guy at the parking lot is played by James Edwards. He's this really nice guy, overly friendly. He comes up and he gets all chatty with Nicky. And initially, it's all kind of good. But, oh man, this guy Nicky just snaps on him and turns out to be a total jerk. Watch the transformation in this film. It's great character stuff. Anyhow, the time comes. Nicky takes a shot, hits a horse, but on trying to escape, he himself gets gunned down and killed. So this is the first snag of the grand heist scheme. Okay, back inside the racetrack, during the big distraction going on, Johnny goes to get his gun, and he dons this freaky clown mask. And he holds up the clerks in the payroll office, stuffing a large bag full of money. Then he tosses a duffel bag out the window where that crooked cop Randy was waiting. He grabs the bag and brings it back to Johnny's rented place. Johnny escapes during all the confusion. So far, so good. Now, back at Johnny's apartment, we got the guys are all waiting for him to get back. George, Mike, Randy, and Marvin. They're sitting there listening to the radio, listening to the news story. And with only about 10 minutes left in the film, no more spoilers. I cannot give away this ending. But wow, it's amazing. It is some shocking twists that take place. You really got to watch how it ends. Final scene in the airport is just brilliant. But no spoilers. Go watch this one for yourself. Now, just some closing thoughts as I was watching this. Loved this movie. And I'll be honest, Stanley Kubrick films are generally amazing works. Particularly, one of my favorite is 2001. I just love the beautiful, careful attention to detail that he puts into his films. But even if this wasn't a Kubrick film, just as a straight-up crime film, this was a blast. I really enjoyed it. Now, In researching this, apparently this was Kubrick's very first film in which he worked with a professional cast and crew. The story is based on the crime pulp novel Clean Break by writer Lionel White. Jim Thompson wrote the screenplay, and he would work with Kubrick again 2 years later on writing Kubrick's film Paths of Glory, which was considered Kubrick's big breakout film. United Artists produced this film, and apparently when they saw the initial cut of the film, they didn't like it. They thought it would confuse audiences, with the elements of the non-linear storytelling. So they went with the addition of the expository voiceover. Personally, I wasn't too distracted by it. It did kind of help with the narrative a little bit, but I would be curious to actually see the original cut of this film someday without any of that added. Now, I'm divided on Sterling Hayden in this role because I've learned that I like seeing him as both the baddie, in a film like Asphalt Jungle or Here, or as the good guy, as like the driven police detective from a film like Crime Wave. I mean, hands down, he's an amazing actor, regardless, and I always enjoy everything I see him in. I love that easygoing yet intense character role that he will play. He's brilliant here. Colleen Gray was wonderful as the character Faye, his loving sweetheart, but I just felt she was not in this film enough, which is a shame. I'd be curious to see her in another role, the movie Kiss of Death that my friend Florida Gregg has recommended, so I'll probably watch that one coming up pretty soon. Similar situation with Vince Edwards. His role is great here, and one of those few moments that he is actually in the film because he wasn't here very much. In a weird way, watching him here, I think he looks and sounds kind of like actor Mark Ruffalo, the guy from those Marvel films, but maybe it's just me. But as mentioned before, I think one of the biggest unexpected appeals of this film was the character development and interaction of George, Elisha Cook Jr., and his very toxic girl, Sherry, Marie Windsor, who really stole the show here. You can't help but feel sorry for poor George as Sherry goes from this nasty, cold, passive aggression to sugary sweet in the blink of an eye. I mean, there's some brilliant acting here. And it's all about that heist money. That's all she really wants, and she is just using this poor guy through the film. And just look at his eyes and his hands on his face and stuff as he is just being twisted and turned and manipulated by her. It's brilliant, brilliant acting. Heist films like this are just a favorite genre of mine, even though they rarely seem to work out for the characters in the film. And, no spoilers, but do expect a darker ending for a 1950s era film. And things will unravel based on the slightest, if most unexpected details. But again, you got to watch the ending for yourself. That's The Killing from 1956. It was an excellent crime noir movie. It's definitely worth checking out.
Red lightning, huh? Red lightning in the 7th.